Career. Couple things to start, Jeff. We have a free agent who's been retained. Perhaps you could tell us about that. And maybe you can tell us, because I saw some people with questions about the Broncos and Russell Wilson, money owed, the impact, all that sort of stuff. So maybe you can clarify those couple of things as we start.
Well, the Wilson thing, it's mostly dead money right now. It's 30, they have like 33 million and change in dead money already on the books, and 32 of it is from the Russell Wilson deal. So that's most of the impact that you're seeing right now. And with the cap increase, they guessed right, or they handled it right. They take the big hit last year and have the starting quarterback on a rookie deal. That makes this year's impact a lot less. They're a lot closer to sort of equilibrium again. So I think that's the biggest, it does limit them a little bit more than some others, but they took the bulk of it last year, and it's probably going to work out for them with the way the cap went up these last 2 years. And then, Michael Burton back in. So, I'm not sure Sean Payton would let that not happen right now. So, but
good for him.
Especially with Rizzy coming in as the special teams coach, I really had to believe that Burton would be back as a core special teamer in some fashion.
Well, why do you think the Giants made this move with Russ? Specifically, how does it relate to Shedeur Sanders? I guess my question, Jeff, is it because they don't like Shedeur Sanders, or maybe because they think that the Cleveland Browns are just selecting Shedeur Sanders?
Yeah, I think, Tyler, it could be all of the above. I know a few folks with the Giants. I don't think they believe signing Jameis Winston and Russell Wilson to short-term deals precludes them from taking Shedeur Sanders in the draft if that's where it comes down. Now, I'm not sure in true grades either quarterback is worth top 3 picks, but we all know that's not going to happen. They're going early, especially in what is basically a 2-quarterback draft in the first round. So I don't know that it precludes them from taking Sanders if they want to, but I think they're also trying to. You've got a head coach in trouble. You've got a personnel department that's feeling the heat after the Saquon Barkley stuff last year. And I think they're trying to cover as many scenarios as possible. Like, what if you don't get, and you wanted to get Shedeur Sanders and you don't get him? You've got to play football next year. So I think they're trying to cover as many bases as possible. And I think, I know Jameis Winston is known as a guy who is, coaches love to work with, players love to work with. And, I know Russell Wilson, sort of showed in Pittsburgh, he can work within the framework if he's not the starter at that moment too. So, and he handled himself well here with Stidham after they benched him. So I think they feel like it's a low impact move. And if they do get the rookie, there's a couple of guys who can help him along the way.
If you were to bet, when's the draft? About a month away, right?
April 24th.
Getting close.
Save the date.
If you had to bet one of these 3 scenarios happen, what would you bet on? The Broncos moving up a little bit, the Broncos staying pat where they are, or the Broncos dropping down even?
I think stay where they are, unless there's nobody left with a first round grade for them, then they move down. Because the issue this year is, in my grades and in talking to people around the league, there's fewer first round grades this year than most years. So they're likely, most teams likely will not have 20 first round grades in this draft. So that puts the Broncos right on the fringe. So if they get to, if it gets to pick 16, 17, and they've only got 1, 2, or none, no first round grades left on the board, then they move down. Otherwise, if you've got a couple first round grades left, you stay there and see if one of those guys is still going to be left when the pick 20 rolls around. But I've talked to one team that has as few as 15 first-round grades, and most teams are in the 18, 19 area. So this is a thin first round and really strong rounds 2 through 4. So if you move down, an awful lot of people are going to want to be in that wheelhouse too.
Real fast, and we talked about this a year or so ago. Has the NILs in college football, affected the drafts at all and the availability of some players?
It has, Scotty, especially day 3. I think day 3s are really thin now because if you're a player in the SEC, for example, and you're a starter, you can probably do better in the current state of NIL with no guardrails anywhere, and money just, being tossed around. If you're in the SEC or Big Ten or, a power school, you can probably in the short term do better than a late day 3 pick in terms of money in your pocket. The thing you're giving up as a player is starting your free agency clock. And, with football, the chances of getting injured are always there for everybody. So I think that's really the only, sort of other thing on the scale. But NAL is impacting, I think, day 2 and day 3 of the draft, especially.
Who's one of the more interesting guys the Broncos have had in for a visit so far, Jeff?
Well, I mean, they're between Zoom meetings and 30 visits, they're covering an awful lot of bases. I think more for me, it's position that's intriguing. They've had some day 3 receivers in, so they're obviously sort of looking at the back half of the board, at that position because it's deep, like running back. You're going to be able to find guys way in. So it's intriguing to me when they take looks at positions like that. But again, I should always emphasize to people, they're going to talk to almost every graded player they have in some fashion, visit, Zoom, Senior Bowl, Combine. So, beyond the top 30 visits, I think it's fair to say that they're going to get face-to-face or at least conversation time with everybody they have a grade on.
I know you just said that there's running backs out there, but I do continue to see a lot of mock drafts having the Broncos taking Omarion Hampton there. Mm-hmm. He worth a first rounder?
He will probably not make a first round grade for me, a high 2. But, I know some scouts who are firmly believe he's a first rounder, Tyler. So, worth that pick, probably. It's just a matter of, is what Sean Payton wants in the passing game part of it, and I think he had 38 receptions last year and showed, has shown some good, good techniques in the workouts and things. But, that would be my question. And also just the depth of the position, how much higher is he graded than some of their other guys? What's the difference in the grade? And if they waited until the 2nd or 3rd round, are you taking a big hit on the talent level? So, but running back definitely is a position strong enough where you could take a guy at the 20th pick and you're going to get a walk-in player ready to go.
That being said, I read an article this week that Williams led the team in average carries per game at like 8, which was the worst in the NFL as far as number of carries for an A guy.
Yeah, we have 12 guys, 4 carries.
Well, so how does that change, and where should that wheelhouse live?
Well, that's right. My question for all of this, even with some of our folks doing the mock drafts, is I don't know how you could watch their run game last year and I have to see them believe in the run game to use the 20th pick in a draft on a running back. If you're going to bring him in and he gets 7-8 carries a game,
what's the point?
Why use the 20th pick and you left some really good players on the board, that could help you more? Or are you just going to get somebody in there and commit to it? But you know, the free agent running back class is a bunch of 30-year-old guys, and there's really nobody left who would come in and be, you know, sort of the primary back type player, I don't think. So if you're going to draft somebody, that's why I see them still looking down the board a little bit. Day 2, day 3. I mean, you know, a player like Etienne, Sampson, those kinds of guys I see more likely than a first round pick on a running back. But, you know, I get proven wrong on draft day quite a bit. So,
all right. Before we let you go really quick, and I see the NFL competition committee, that dynamic kickoff is staying, although they may, you guys see that? They might, if you kick it through the end zone, you get it at the 35 now, not the 30, or that's where they're going. I think they're going to push that through, Jeff. They're desperate to have somebody actually return a kickoff.
I think they want both worlds, Dmac. They want this setup, but they want people to return the ball with this setup. So, yeah.
Well, all right. Again, I hate the kickoff period, but that's just me. I think I just think they've modified it so much, Jeff, at this point. Like, what are we doing here? We might as well just have a football play and just play football. Or go back to the most dangerous play ever in the history of football. Are there any of the rule changes that you do like or don't like that may be happening? What do you see in terms of changes coming down the pipe?
Yeah, I mean, I don't see anything this year that, like, fans would be like, oh my God, that's a huge change. You know, that's when I looked at the list briefly, I was like, okay, you know, I don't think there's any of those big, really enormous things. The reseeding thing, I think winning the division should matter. You know, I'm always on board with that. So I'm intrigued. I'm always intrigued to see what complaint turns into a potential rules change from the previous year.
Is there some owners more powerful than others that if they really get behind an issue, you'll see that thing pass easier than some others?
Yeah, I think more so in the past, Scotty. I think, you know, there's been enough turnover now that, you know, it used to be a lot of the family ownership teams would sort of get together on things, and then it was a powerful block. You know, the Rooneys, the Maras, you know, even Bud Adams to a certain extent. You know, back when, you know, it was more single ownership, but now it's a more corporate view, and you know, I don't think I think it's harder for one owner to get revved up and get something all the way down the line unless the commissioner helps him.